reviews for a little over 5 years now, which is astonishing when I really think about it. But I still remember my third review I ever did, and my first two both sucked. But my third review, which was also the only old review, well, a review that was that old, that I was willing to keep around, namely Sonic Spinball. Now, when I covered this game the first time, which, again, was about 5 years ago, I didn't do a very good job. It was unscripted, it was very stuttery, I had no preparation at all. There was a frame rate counter in the lower left corner, because I didn't know how to shut that off at the time. There were a lot of problems with that review, so I thought, I'm covering a lot of Sonic stuff right now, why not talk about Sonic Spinball?
The game's concept is definitely a unique one. I haven't really heard of any other game being at all similar to it, so I gotta give it credit for being unique. Let me give you the setup before I get into the actual game, though. Basically, Dr. Robotnik has built this massive machine structure called the Vega Fortress, and has decided that it'd be a really good idea to protect himself with the Pinball Defense System. Sonic and Tails go to stop him, Sonic gets knocked off the plane, and falls into the sewer system of the Vega Fortress.
Pinball Defense System, really. This plot is absolutely ludicrous. And if you think I'm complaining about the plot that's listed in the manual or something that you'd have to go and read, well, for one, that'd still be a legitimate complaint, but two, they talk about it on the back of the case. They specifically mention both the Vega Fortress and the Pinball Defense System. Give me a break. Why would Dr. Robotnik ever, and I mean ever, build a defense system that is specifically made to allow his mortal nemesis to be able to traverse it? Sonic is one of the few other beings on the planet that would be able to get through something like a pinball defense system. Why would he ever build such a thing? Why would Dr. Robotnik ever think that was a good idea? Why not just build a wall or something? I mean, to me, that's like locking a door and then making it so that the only way to open the door was to beat a video game that's attached to the lock of the door. I mean, it's retarded.
As I said, the game is extremely unique in that you control Sonic, who is the ball, with flippers, and you get him through certain traps and certain obstacles using pinball-like physics. The game is actually set up pretty well in this regard. Everything works appropriately, the physics behind Sonic's movements are pretty spot on. The main difference between this and regular pinball is that you can control Sonic's movements with the D-pad while he's flying along, which obviously you can't really do without cheating in regular pinball. There are enemies to destroy, but they can't exactly hurt you since you're always in ball form, and as I'm sure you know from other Sonic games, unless there's spikes involved, Sonic is basically invulnerable as long as he's a spinning ball. Now, the goal of each stage is not only to get to the end, but also to collect the Chaos Emeralds along the way. This is actually required before you're allowed to fight the boss of each stage, and there are a total of about 16 Chaos Emeralds in Sonic Spinball. Yeah, don't know where they got that number from, because that's definitely a big jump from the previously established 6 or 7, which, by that I mean there's twice as many in this game. But in fairness, this game was developed before there was an official solid number of 7 Chaos Emeralds, so I'm gonna cut it some slack in that regard. I mentioned boss fights. There are a few boss fights in the game, one for each stage, but I gotta say, the boss fights aren't that good. They aren't too memorable, and the only one you're really gonna remember is the first one, and that's only for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's a giant Eggman Scorpion. Alright, you just can't forget that. That's not an image you can just get out of your head. Number 2, you will never, ever be able to get this noise out of your goddamn head. God, I have nightmares about that noise. Speaking of sound, the music is pretty good overall, but this is where I'm going to start getting into negatives. While I do love the first level's music, some of the music in the later stages starts to sort of annoy me a little. It sounds very forced and in your face, and it's just trying too hard. I don't know, it just kind of alienates itself from the other Sonic games in terms of its sound. It has no music that sounds anything like any of the other games. And the only reason the first level gets away with it is because the song is so damn catchy. On top of that, the graphics of this game aren't fantastic. I mean, they aren't bad, obviously. And when you're in the pinball form, really you aren't going to notice anything, but when Sonic's walking around, it's easy to tell that not only is his sprite somewhat rushed, but the animations aren't fluid at all. They're quite choppy and unimpressive. Also, on top of everything else, this game is honestly kind of buggy. There are a lot of glitches in this game, mainly around the physics, and I know I said they work well, and they do when they're working, but I've gone up when I'm supposed to go down in this game. I've gone through walls. I've bounced in directions that I shouldn't have bounced. Nothing that's ever killed me, in fairness, but still, these are issues that should have been ironed out in post-development. I do feel like this game was rushed out the door just a little bit. I mean, again, it's not bad, but the quality compared to the other Sonic games in the Genesis has definitely dropped just a little bit on this one. On top of that, speaking of comparing it to other Sonic games, this is, by far, the hardest Sonic game that I have ever played. And honestly, sitting here right now, I can't tell you another Sonic game that even comes close to being as difficult as Sonic Spinball. It is probably the hardest Sonic game in existence. The game just does not give one single fuck. It will kill you if you mess up. Period. It's very unforgiving in that regard. The first level will give you a few breaks early on, but once you hit the second level, there's just no room for error. If you fall, you are dead. Period. Again, there are some times where you can get out of it, but the saves just rarely happen. The game just kills you. Is this a bad thing? Well, no. I guess if you want a challenge, this is where to go. But, man, this game is just brutal.
But I gotta say, Sonic Spinball is still a pretty fun game to play. If you ever get a chance, I'd definitely give it a try. I mean, it's got its problems, but as a spin-off game, it's not bad. So with that, till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta get something to eat. What the hell? This stupid thing on my door. What the heck is my Game Gear doing stuck to my door? What the heck is it?
You have to play the game to get the door open, Darkness.
No, I am not playing that piece of shit.
Play the game.